Welcome to the 2D City Builder tutorial for the Classic City Builder kit from Softlightner. This video and the accompanying manual page will guide you through the creation of a basic city builder. Most of this guide also applies for 3D games. To see how the visuals for 3D games can be set up, please check out the 3-in-Town demos included in the asset. Start by creating a new Unity project using the 2D template. Import essential resources from the Text Mesh Pro menu. Next, import the Classic City Builder asset itself. In newer versions, this is done using the Package Manager window. Only import the City Builder core folder within the asset and deselect anything else. The other folders contain various examples, tests, and additional resources, which are not needed here. To explore the other demos and examples, you can import the entire asset into a fresh project. Generate a basic sprite-based game using the built-in setup window. This generator will set up a basic map with some UI and an example building, road and walker. You are now left with a very basic but already runnable game. Save, load, speed controls, minimap and some other small features are already fully functional. Place the manual assets found in the description inside your Assets folder. Open the Tile Palette tab found in Windows 2D. If this window is missing, you need to install 2D Tile Map Editor from the Package Manager. Make sure your active tile map is ground and your palette is HT palette. You can now start drawing your map in the scene view. We'll later add a water layer that spreads out 2 tiles from water. I've drawn grass tiles there to communicate that to the player. Configure the map component so that the water tile blocks walking and building. Find the road and road tool that was generated by the setup and change it so it uses the correct sprites. When you start the game now, you should be able to draw some nice connecting roads everywhere, but on the water. Next, we will adopt the house generated by the setup for our water supply building. The water supply building has to be built close to water. To achieve this, create a new layer called Water Layer. Add it as an affecting tile in the default layer manager, and in the building info of our water supply, add a building requirement, which checks the layer value. Create a service called Water Service. It will be used by the water carriers that provide water to housing. When you start the game now, you should only be able to build the water supply building next to water tiles. Add an animator and some animator events to the walker base prefab. Adopt the generated walker into a water carrier and hook up the animator and animation events. Switch your inspector into debug mode and change the roaming walker script to service walker. We exchange scripts this way to retain the field values. With the walker done, we can add a service walker component to the water supply that will spawn it when connected to roads. Next up are items. The generated item is already used as currency in tools. Simply rename it to gold. For the wheat item, we start off creating the visual prefab that is later used to visualize it in storage. Create the wheat item itself, assign the visual and add it to the item set. Use the walkers window to easily clone the water carrier and turn it into a delivery walker called cart pusher. In newer versions of the asset, walkers also require a unique code for identification. Simply choose any unique short string like CAP. Clone the water supply building next and turn it into a farm. The farm is a larger building. Set the size in the building info and move the center pivot in the prefab. Add a production walker component to the building which will periodically produce wheat. In newer versions of the asset, the production component no longer has a walker, which is why we need to use the production walker component instead. The same is true for the storage component later, where we need to use a storage walker component instead to get a walker spawner. Add a visualizer that shows different sprites depending on the production progress. Clone the water supply tool in the UI and configure it for the farm. You should now be able to build farms that visualize their progress and spawn walkers whenever they are done. We'll take care of storage next, so they will have somewhere to go. Copy the water supply again and turn it into a large building called Granary with a storage walker component and storage visualizer. Add 8 origins, which the visualizer will use to place the storage visuals of the individual stacks. Create a tool for the Granary building and try it out in play mode. To later distribute the food, we need a purchase walker that gets it from the Granary to the Bazaar and a sale walker that brings it to houses. Now create the Bazaar building with a distribution component that uses the seller and buyer walkers. Clone the water supply tool in the UI and the Bazaar won't do much yet because sellers won't find any item recipients. Let's turn to housing and population. Start off by creating a population asset. Create hut, shanty, and cottage buildings and give them housing components with increasing population capacities. Create another building called property and add a housing placeholder component. Add a tool that builds the property building. But for the image, use the hut sprite as the property is replaced by the hut as soon as population arrives at it. Create the immigrant and emigrant walkers, which will be used to move population into and out of your city. Change their path type to map grid so they can walk on the map without needing roads. On the logic object in the scene, add a migration component which manages the walkers and a default population manager. When you start the game now and build housing, the migration should spawn immigrants that occupy the properties and turn them into huts. Create an evolution sequence asset that describes the different stages of the housing evolution. Add evolution components to the housing buildings and configure the recipients for the different services and items. Your huts should now turn into shanties when a water carrier passes them. Once a bazaar seller provides them with wheat, they should turn into cottages. You might want to give yourself some more gold by increasing the quantity in Default Item Manager. I hope this guide has been helpful to you. You can find a more advanced completed version of this project in the City Builder Manual folder in the asset. All the other demos are structured very similarly if you want to explore those now. If you are interested in any individual system, you can also check out the testing scenes and playgrounds in citybuildercore.tests.